You know, kid, when you hit 80 like me, you realize life is like your garage. It starts off clean, organized, full of potential. Then, somewhere along the way, you blink, and suddenly you're surrounded by rusty bicycles you haven't touched in decades, a pile of mismatched socks, and for some reason, 6 coffee makers that don't work. I'm Paul Walker. No, not that Paul Walker, bless his soul. I'm the older, slower, more wrinkled version. And today, I want to tell you something important. Something I wish someone had told me when I was your age. Declutter. And no, I'm not just talking about your attic, though we'll get to that dusty beast soon enough. I'm talking about your whole life, your house, your heart, your mind. Because trust me, kid, by the time you turn 70, you'll wish you had less stuff and more peace. Let me take you back to a summer afternoon, maybe 20 years ago. I was digging through my closet trying to find my lucky fishing hat. Took me nearly 2 hours. Know what I found instead? A prom photo from 1963, a broken watch from my Navy days, and a pair of pants I hadn't worn since Reagan was president. That day, I sat on the floor of that tiny, overstuffed closet and just laughed. Then I cried. Then I laughed again because I found a can of beans in there. Don't ask me why. And that was the moment I realized I had spent more time holding on to memories than living them. Ever feel like your stuff owns you instead of the other way around? You wake up one day and your house has become a museum of your past instead of a home for your present. I had boxes labeled MISC, stacked so high I couldn't see the window. What kind of grown man has boxes labeled MISC? I didn't even know what was in half of them. You know what's dangerous? That little phrase, I might need it someday. That's how you end up with 43 plastic grocery bags under the sink and a drawer full of dried-out pens that stopped working before Clinton took office. I kept my son's kindergarten drawings in a folder so thick it could stop a bullet. I never opened it, not once, until one day I did, and realized I didn't remember half the things he'd drawn. But you know what I do remember? The day he gave me one. The way he looked up at me, waiting for my smile. And here's the truth. Memories don't live in stuff. They live in us. If you think holding on to something means you're keeping the love, wait till I tell you about the wedding gift I never used and how it nearly wrecked my second marriage. It was this fancy crystal punch ball. Beautiful, sure, but heavy. Came in this box the size of a microwave. My first wife's cousin gave it to us. Never used it, not once, but I held on to it like it was the Holy Grail. When I remarried years later, my second wife asked if we could give it away. You'd have thought she'd asked me to burn down the house. Why? I didn't even like punch. But I had attached so much meaning to that bowl. It became this symbol of a life that had already passed. Holding on to it was like holding on to guilt, like I was trying to preserve something I no longer needed to carry. I don't know if it's guilt, sentiment, or just plain laziness, but we hold on to things like they're lifeboats. But kid, sometimes the ship is already sunk, and you're just floating in circles with a broken oar. I kept my wife's teacup collection for 8 years after she passed. Never used them, never dusted them, just stared at them like they'd talk back one day. You want a real gut punch? One morning, my granddaughter asked if she could use one. I said no. She said, "Then what are they for?" And I had no answer. Want to know the single item that finally made me break down and start decluttering for good? It was hidden behind a stack of old Reader's Digests, and it wasn't even mine. It was a letter from my brother. He passed in '99. The letter was from '82. In it, he talked about how he regretted not chasing his dream of moving to the mountains, building a cabin, living simply. He said, "I think I've filled my life with so much junk that I can't hear what it's really trying to tell me." That line hit me like a brick. I thought, that's me. That's my house. That's my life. So I started. I call it the Great Purge of 2015, like it was some epic battle. And honestly, it kind of was. It started with the attic. Ever go into an attic thinking, I'll just grab that one thing? Hours later, I was sitting cross-legged between an electric fondue set and a suitcase full of 1980s Christmas cards. I made 3 piles: keep, donate, and burn with fire. And I'll be real with you, that burn pile got big. But each item I let go of made me feel lighter, like I could finally breathe again. I didn't need the fondue set. I needed space to dance. And I needed room for the people I loved, not the things I thought I needed. Hey, if this story's striking a chord with you, do me a favor, click that like button. Drop a comment below if there's something in your house you've been meaning to let go of. And if you want more stories like this, hit that subscribe button and join me for the next cup of wisdom, all right? Because we're just getting started. Let me tell you something, kid. There's a strange kind of magic in letting go. It's not flashy. It's not the kind you read about in novels or see in movies. It's quiet. It's the moment you toss out an old receipt from 1974 and realize, for the first time in decades, that you're not obligated to carry everything you've ever touched. I remember the garage. Oh, that beast. You ever see one of those storage unit shows on TV where they open a locker and just stare into a black hole of forgotten crap? That was my garage. I found everything in there except a car. Golf clubs I never learned to use, paint cans from a color I don't even remember painting, 3 hammers. 3! I only have 2 hands, and none of them are handy. And don't even get me started on the junk drawer. That's where old keys went to die. No one knew what they unlocked anymore. Maybe treasure, maybe trauma. I even found a universal remote in there. Universal for what? The universe? So I stood there, surrounded by my life's clutter, and I asked myself a question I think you should ask too. If someone else had to clean all this up tomorrow, would they understand who I was? Or just wonder what the hell I was thinking? That thought haunted me. I didn't want my kids or grandkids to have to decipher my chaos. I wanted to leave behind a life that made sense, not a mystery they had to solve with gloves and a trash bag. You ever notice how people start cleaning out their lives after a health scare, or a loss, or a divorce? We wait until we're cornered by life to start paying attention. But what if we didn't? What if we got ahead of the mess? I started giving things away, slowly, intentionally. Not just junk, but things that meant something. I gave my favorite jacket to my nephew, the one I wore every winter since the late 80s. I gave my old chess set to my neighbor's son. He plays with his granddad every Sunday now. Every time I let something go, I felt like I was passing a baton. I wasn't just decluttering, I was redistributing joy. And not everything I got rid of was physical. You want to know the heaviest thing I ever carried? Regret. For years I held on to this bitterness toward my brother, toward my father, toward myself. Little things that built up like dust on a shelf you never touch until one day it collapses. So I started decluttering my emotions, too. I forgave my brother, not in a dramatic Hollywood speech, just in my heart, quietly. I said, "You were a jerk sometimes, but so was I." Then I let it go. And I forgave myself for the things I said, for the things I didn't say, for all the times I didn't show up the way I should have. Cleaning your heart is messier than cleaning a closet, I'll tell you that. There's no pile labeled donate when it comes to shame or anger, but you can still get rid of it. You just have to face it. There was this one letter, written by my daughter during a rough patch in our relationship. I had folded it and stuffed it in a drawer. For years, I let those words fester. But during the purge, I opened it again. And you know what? She wasn't angry, she was hurt. There's a difference. I called her. We cried. Then we healed. That's what decluttering can do. It opens doors. It gives you space, not just on your shelves, but in your life. People think downsizing is about giving up. No, it's about creating room for what matters most. I sold the big house a few years after the purge, moved into a smaller place, 2 bedrooms, just enough for me and the occasional visitor. At first, I missed the space, and I realized I never really used most of it anyway. You know what I don't miss? The stress of maintaining it all. The leaky faucets, the dusting, the bills. Now I wake up, brew a cup of coffee, and sit on my porch with a view of the park. Nothing fancy, but peaceful. And peace, my friend, is worth more than square footage. And you know the funniest thing? I don't remember most of the things I gave away, but I remember how it felt to finally walk into a room and not feel overwhelmed, to open a drawer and not be afraid, to breathe. Look, I know some folks say, but what about the memories? Memories don't live in boxes. They live in the smile lines on your face, in the laughter you shared, in the stories you tell. That's why I'm telling you mine. Let go of the extra, the weight, the clutter, the guilt, the junk you keep saying you'll get to it one day. Because trust me, one day turns into never quicker than you think. Don't wait until you're 80 like me to finally feel free. Start now. You ever watch a little kid play? I mean, really watch. Give a kid a cardboard box and they'll turn it into a spaceship, a race car, or a pirate ship. You give that same kid a room full of fancy toys, and suddenly they're bored. Why is that? Because too much stuff kills imagination. It buries it under blinking lights and noisy gadgets. And you know what? That doesn't stop when we get older. We pile our lives with gadgets, subscriptions, cluttered calendars, junk mail, junk thoughts, junk habits, and we wonder why we're tired all the time, why we can't think straight, why we wake up feeling like we're already behind. The answer's simple. We've got too much crap, inside and out. After I finished purging the physical things, I took a long, hard look at my schedule. Even retired, I was saying yes to everything. Every coffee, every favor, every social event I didn't really want to attend. You know what that is? Clutter. Busyness is just another kind of hoarding, and I was knee-deep in it. So I started saying no, not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood the value of my time. I didn't want to die exhausted from things that didn't matter. When I stopped trying to be everywhere for everyone, I discovered I actually had time to be present for myself. I started painting again. Not well, mind you, I'm no Picasso. My first painting looked like a dog got into the watercolors and sneezed on the canvas. But it made me laugh. It made me feel alive. Then I started writing letters, actual handwritten letters to old friends. You'd be amazed how powerful a real letter is these days. I got one back from an army buddy I hadn't seen in 40 years. Said he cried when he opened it. So did I. And that's the thing. When you clear space, you invite beauty in. But it's not just about making room for hobbies or quiet time. It's about making space for truth. There was a drawer in my nightstand I never opened for years. I called it the drawer of denial. Inside were old medical reports, scans, letters from doctors, every one of them something I didn't want to face. Until one day, I did. And yeah, it was tough. There were things in there I wish I'd faced earlier. But you know what was tougher than the diagnoses? The weight of fear, the avoidance. That's what wore me down. Once I faced it, I started making peace with it. I made new health choices. I stopped eating like a raccoon in a dumpster. Started walking more, sleeping better, meditating even. You ever seen an 80-year-old man try to meditate? It's mostly snoring, but it helps. Sometimes the heaviest clutter is the kind no one sees. I also found old love letters in that drawer. Some from my first wife, some I never sent, some I shouldn't have written. They were full of longing, regret, desire, and forgiveness. I read each one. Then I burned them. Not out of anger, out of release. I whispered a thank you to the past and let the ashes fly off my back porch like tiny little goodbyes. And oh, what a feeling. You ever thrown out a bag of stuff and felt physically lighter? That's your soul stretching out after being cramped for years. That's your heart standing up straighter. That's your spirit unclenching its jaw. It's beautiful. One day after all that, I sat in my quiet little home. My cat was curled up on the couch, the breeze was coming through the open window, and I just sat there doing nothing. And I smiled, because I realized I had everything I needed. Not in boxes, not in drawers, not in the attic, but right here. I was full, but not cluttered. I had space, but didn't feel empty. That, my friend, is a sweet spot of life. Now, I won't lie to you, letting go is hard, especially when something has sentimental value. You pick up an old scarf and suddenly you're back in 1972 on a cold night after your first heartbreak. Or you find your mom's favorite recipe and your hands start shaking. But here's what I've learned. You don't have to keep the thing to keep the memory. You just have to honor it. Sometimes that means writing the memory down. Sometimes it means sharing the story. Sometimes it means sitting quietly with the feeling, letting it wash over you, and then watching it go like a tide returning to sea. There's strength in that. And here's a wild idea. Take a photo of the thing. Make a memory book. One picture, one sentence, one story. Then give the item away. Let it bless someone else's life the way it blessed yours. Because stuff is just stuff, but meaning is portable. It travels with you. Decluttering isn't about throwing your life away. It's about curating it. It's about choosing what stays in your story and what becomes a footnote. It's about honoring your past, simplifying your present, and making space for your future. So before you turn 70, do yourself a favor. Start clearing the path. Because what's waiting on the other side is not emptiness, it's freedom. Let me tell you about something I never expected after I started letting go. I started dreaming again. And I don't mean the kind of dreams you have when you fall asleep in your recliner with the TV still on and wake up thinking you're in a shampoo commercial. I mean real dreams, goals, hopes, things I thought were long gone. Like maybe learning the piano, maybe taking a train ride across the country, maybe just spending a whole afternoon doing nothing but listening to old jazz records and letting the sunlight hit my toes. You see, for a long time, I thought that dreaming was for the young. But now I realize it's for the light. And you can't be light if you're carrying the weight of every what if, every old suitcase full of guilt, every broken thing you swore you'd fix one day. I once read this quote that said, "You can't reach for anything new if your hands are full of yesterday's junk." Boy, ain't that the truth. And let's talk about people for a second, because they can be clutter too. Oh yeah, that one's touchy, I know, but hear me out. We all have folks in our lives who've been around for years but stopped growing with us a long time ago. Some people are blessings, others are lessons, and some are just loud, dusty distractions that block the light. There were people I held on to out of habit, old friends, family even, who only called when they needed something or wanted to remind me of who I used to be. I had to let some of those relationships go. Not out of anger, out of self-respect. Because just like a junk drawer, your soul only has so much room. And if it's filled with draining people and ancient baggage, there's no space left for the ones who lift you higher. I started surrounding myself with people who made me laugh, who listened, who asked me what I wanted out of life instead of telling me what I missed. And guess what? Life got sweeter. There's a bench at the park down the street where I sit sometimes. It's just wood and iron, nothing special. But I've had some of the best conversations of my life on that bench. With strangers, with neighbors, with myself. That bench isn't cluttered, it's just available. And I think that's what we're all really after. Availability. Room to breathe. Room to feel. Room to just be. My grandson asked me last Christmas, "Grandpa, what do you want for the holidays?" I said, "Nothing really. I already have everything I need, and most of it can't be wrapped." He looked confused. I get it. At his age, he still thinks happiness comes in boxes with shiny bows. But you and I know better. I've got love, peace, a good pair of slippers, a kitchen with only the pans I actually use, a closet where I can see the floor, and most importantly, I've got space for music, for memories, for laughter, for naps in the sun, for quiet mornings with tea and loud afternoons with grandkids. Decluttering gave me that. So I want to leave you with this. One day you'll look around and ask yourself, why did I hold on to this? And maybe by then the thing, whether it's an object, a wound, or a person, won't even make sense anymore. Don't wait for that day. Take a walk through your home with new eyes. Touch the things you haven't touched in years. Ask yourself why you're keeping them. Ask yourself what part of you they're really tied to. Then be brave enough to let go. Go through your heart the same way. Clean it like springtime. Open the windows. Dust off the corners. Let the light in. Forgive what needs forgiving. Release what's run its course. Bless the memories, but don't let them bury you. Because you deserve a lighter life, a clearer mind, a softer soul. And you don't have to wait until you're 80 like me to find it. You can start today. You can start now. And when you do, you'll find that what's left behind isn't less, it's more. More room for love. More room for joy. More room for you. So go ahead, kid. Let go. Make space. And watch your life begin again.